Right, let's dive straight into this explainer. If you've pulled up to a petrol pump lately, or honestly, even if you've just bought your weekly groceries, you've definitely felt the sting of these sudden fuel price hikes. We're going to unpack exactly what's going on here. We'll look at why it's happening right now and how massive geopolitical shocks occurring thousands of miles away are literally trickling down to hit your family budget. We're starting right out on the streets, where sheer frustration over these rising daily expenses is really boiling over. You've got commuters staging protests, and get this, some opposition party leaders have literally showed up to protest riding in bullock carts just to make their point. I know it sounds extreme, but it perfectly captures the mood. When the cost of just getting to work or transporting absolute essentials like milk and veggies suddenly spikes, people feel totally backed into a corner. So moving into Section 1, the pump price shock and its immediate impact at the station. 3 rupees. That is the exact per liter increase we are looking at for both petrol and diesel. Now, in isolation, $3 might not sound like the end of the world, but remember, context is everything here. This is the first major upward revision for consumers in nearly 4 years. For the longest time, that price on the board at your local station was this rare, predictable constant in the economy. Well, that constant is officially broken. And because state taxes vary so much, the pain isn't exactly shared equally across the board. In places like Mumbai and Kolkata, petrol has blown right past that psychological 100 rupee mark. When the digits on the pump roll over into 3 figures, it's a real shock to the system for the average commuter just trying to balance their monthly transport budget. Let's move over to Section 2, the global crisis and its local impact. To really understand this, we've got to trace the domino effect back to the Middle East. It all kicked off with the US-Iran conflict, creating a severe supply chokehold right in the Strait of Hormuz, which is basically the world's most critical oil transit route. This caused global benchmark crude to surge way past $100 a barrel. Now, India actually froze domestic prices for 76 days, but eventually the dam broke, and that geopolitical shock found its way straight to your local pump. Here's where our national vulnerability really comes into play. India imports over 80% of its crude oil. We're a huge growing economy, so we're incredibly thirsty for fuel. Every single time global crude rises by just $10 a barrel, it adds a mind-boggling $13 to $14 billion to our national import bill. That's a massive, massive drain on foreign exchange that the economy just can't ignore. Which brings us to Section 3, absorbing the economic blow. Remember that 76-day price freeze we just talked about? Well, during that time, public sector oil marketing companies were bleeding nearly 1,000 crore rupees, and that's every single day. That was the daily price tag for shielding the public from those skyrocketing international rates. But look, absorbing 1,000 crore rupees a day is a financial hemorrhage that absolutely no state treasury can sustain forever. So the government defends its strategy by pointing to the rest of the world. While 82 other nations resorted to emergency fuel rationing or massive overnight price spikes, India took a slightly softer path. The hike we're seeing is around 3.5%, which is actually the lowest among major economies. Instead of forcing restrictions, the Prime Minister has been urging voluntary conservation. Cutting back on fuel usage, even holding off on buying gold for a year, all just to manage that huge drain on foreign exchange. But of course, this brings us to Section 4, the 43 trillion tax debate. As a neutral policy analyst, it's fascinating to look at the dueling political narratives here. The government insists it shielded citizens from global chaos as best it could, pointing straight to external conflicts. The opposition, on the other hand, claims the state hoarded wealth during the good economic times, only to squeeze citizens the second things got tough. They're basically arguing this is a domestic management crisis, not just international bad luck. And the opposition points straight to this massive figure. They argue that over a 10-year period, when global oil prices were historically low, the central government collected an eye-watering 43 lakh crore rupees in taxes. Their whole argument boils down to this. If the government collected all that tax when crude was dirt cheap, instead of lowering pump prices back then, shouldn't they use those massive savings to prevent today's price hikes and protect everyday families? Next up is Section 5, the election timing clash. Opposition leaders are zeroing in on a very specific, highly scrutinized calendar alignment. They're loudly pointing out that this price hike was rolled out immediately after state assembly elections wrapped up in Assam, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Bengal. The claim here is that the government artificially suppressed prices just to win votes, and then unleashed the harsh economic reality on everyone the absolute second the ballot boxes were sealed. Okay, moving right along to Section 6, the household budget squeeze. Stepping away from the politics, let's look at how this directly hits your family budget. Think of diesel as this invisible conveyor belt that brings every single item to your local store. Step 1, diesel goes up, meaning freight trucks cost way more to run. Step 2, logistics companies hike up their rates across the entire supply chain. And step 3, your local vendor raises the price of tomatoes, milk, everything. It's a domino effect that proves even if you don't own a car, you're paying a diesel tax every single time you buy groceries. And everyday commuters are getting squeezed from all sides right now. The opposition is projecting inflation could near 6%, shrinking your purchasing power. On top of that, CNG prices were bumped up by 2 rupees per kilo, so auto rickshaws and public transport fares are jumping up too. The financial pressure is getting so intense that a lot of buyers are completely rethinking their next vehicle, ditching traditional engines and rapidly shifting toward EVs and strong hybrids just to survive the monthly running costs. So, as you navigate all these rising costs, I want to leave you with this final thought. When global supply chains snap, there is always a massive bill to pay. The whole debate right now is simply about who gets stuck with that bill. Does the state treasury absorb the blow, or does the true cost of global crises inevitably shift onto the everyday family budget? It's definitely something to chew on the next time you're standing at the pump. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking the right questions.